Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming through to this session where we're looking at WARP in Africa. So there is no doubt that the water operators play a tremendous role in the acceleration of achievement of the SDGs, especially SDG 6 pertaining to water and sanitation. Capacitating the water operators through the water partnership is obviously critical in bridging the gap and sourcing greater expertise from the operators. The African Water and Sanitation Association, being the WOOP coordination in Africa, the African platform has recorded a significant improvement of performance of African utilities under the WOP model since the beginning of the coordination in 2008, where some of the mentees utilities have become mentors spread in their various sub-regions, North, West, Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa. Currently, some of the performing utilities under the Africa Water and Sanitation Association are regional implementing partners, and they are assisting a number of utilities in this particular partnership. The Africa Water and Sanitation has convened this session to reflect on that journey of the WOP Africa and its future. And we'll be listening to a number of two presentations, and then we'll have a panel. So as we begin, let me just introduce myself. Kelvin Chitumbo is my name. I'm a regulator from Zambia. And in terms of our first presentation, I want to introduce Simeon. Now, Simeon Kenfa is the director of the programs at the Africa Water and Sanitation for over 10 years, where he coordinates the Water Operators Partnership for Africa platform. He's a sanitary engineer by profession and holds a PhD and a master's in environmental engineering. Since 2013, through the Africa Water and Sanitation Association programs, Dr. Kenfa has facilitated over 30 WOOPs and is now preparing for the new 5-year WOOP, where we'll be looking at issues of non-revenue water, water quality, pro-poor services, municipal wash management, and citywide inclusive sanitation. So let me now ask that we put our hands together as we invite Dr. Kenfa to give us the first presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy that my intervention can come at this special moment as we are already running the 3rd day of this Congress, this worldwide important Congress, and what we will present will feel as the takeaway, because tomorrow there will no more be a presentation, so we are more than happy to see that you are attending this session in number. So, as you can see from how I titled this presentation, just to show that the peer-to-peer learning approach, which comes from WOP, has been considered within the time as the seed for the methodology of the programs at AFWA. And with this, I don't know if I have it here. You can move, please. We will follow the journey of this. We will follow the journey of this program at I don't know if, okay. Yes. So the African, but before we go to the in deep in the presentation, let me introduce to the participant that the African Water and Sanitation Association is a professional organization putting together water and sanitation stakeholders in the Africa continent. And this organization was created 43 years ago. And the aim of this organization is to mobilize African water and sanitation actors so that it can build their capacity for them to perform better on the water and sanitation services. Since then, at the beginning, it was the Africa Union and Africa of water supplier. But with the challenge of the sector within the time, and there have been some reforms that takes the water sector to be splitted in various countries into sanitation, water suppliers, sanitation service, service delivery, utilities, and in other countries there are asset management utilities. So all these are no more water supplier, but and that is why the name has been changed the first time to become Africa Water Association. And since February, again, due to the agenda of sanitation that has been raised in our association, we have agreed to change the name for the second time to become Africa Water and Sanitation Association. And in terms of stakeholders, we have regular members, we have affiliate members who are university, equipment suppliers, municipality are also regular members, and they are also individual members, which is constituted by all those who have interest in the water sector, such as individual consultants or those who advocate for water business. So with this, there are various categories of members. And of course, per year, any member, he pays some fees, which are not enough. But we take the opportunity to invite those who are not yet member and who are in Africa or elsewhere to join. Coming to the WOP in Africa, since 2006, when the UNSGAP has committed UN Habitat to promote the WOP movement around the globe. When it comes to Africa, UN Habitat and its partner, they identify African Water Association at the time to sit at the WOP Africa platform, and that is how in 2013 I came in as the WOP Africa program coordinator at AFWA. And from then, we have started implementing WOP until 2015, where based on the numbers of WOPs and the programs, we agree to create a directory of programs. And all these programs are, as you saw from the title, the seat of the methodology of these programs lays on the peer-to-peer learning approach. With this, now programs has been expanded, and I will show from the beginning, the strategy was coordinated, the overall coordinations of WOPs was from the main office where I seated, and the peer-to-peer learning and the classroom training activities were conducted, coordinated from my office. I'm based in Abidjan, where the headquarters of the organization is set. So, and from that, we, up till 2015, 2014, we have been, as you can see from this map of the continent, all these which are red are the mentors, and the green points show where are the mentors, the mentees. And these mentees are those the utilities willing to improve their performance, and they are mentors through the peer-to-peer learning approach. So to improve to identify the gaps in the utility, and these gaps could be constituted of non-revenue water issues, water quality, proper services, etc. So when these thematics are taken, consider, and then capacitate by the mentor, so that the mentee can perform better. But with the time, and due to the higher demand of getting involved, we realized we could no more continue coordinating and facilitating work only from the coordination office, and that is where we are now. And you can see from the next slide that through the continent, we have a numbers of requests in terms of work for non-revenue water, work for citywide inclusive sanitation, work for water quality, and with these big numbers of requests, we had to change, to move forward, and identify in the region some of the mentors who are able to manage the programs, who has the quality to manage the program and facilitate the work in the region. And that is how, knowing that the continent, Africa continent, at the Africa Union, is split in 5 regions: the north, the eastern, the western, the central, and the southern. Then we took this picture to identify in the western region, in Burkina Faso, the utility of Burkina Faso as a mentor, and being the regional implementing partner for AFWASA to now facilitate all the works in West Africa from there. That is like a branch of AFWA in Burkina Faso for the Western Africa region, in Cameroon for the Central Africa region, in Uganda for the Eastern Africa region, and in Johannesburg, Durban, in South Africa for the Southern Africa region. And with this, we still need to capacitate. When you look at the map, the red is where we are based, and all the green, the yellow for the Southern Africa regions are where our regional implementing office are located. But with this, and to move forward, you realize we need, there are some challenge that we have to cover with this rep the ability of the rep to really to implement our strategy, peer-to-peer learning without including any default in the process, the ability to accept and recognize as such the beneficiary and the actors country, because sometimes they are not involved in any business, but they are just mandated by the organization to mentor or to facilitate the work between the other. And so for this, we have to skill the regional implementing partners. We have to equip them with the facilitation tools, and also guarantee that they have good knowledge of financial management of programs because they are, first of all, the utilities. But going forward, and given that we identify a numbers of the need of capacity building in the utility, we are in the process of establishing the African Water and Sanitation Academy, which from where all the training will be conducted, and because peer-to-peer learning is a project and it's a process, but when it comes to capacitate, there are some online on-job training which can be conducted within the work, but they will need more people to be trained, and that is why the academy, which is a professional academy, comes in, and this project is on track. We are now establishing in Uganda the coordination up of this academy, and which definitely will be conducted, implemented in a satellite mode, so that people will not need to go to Uganda to be trained, but those from Uganda and the Eastern Africa region could be trained there. What I didn't mention is that a part of the regional hub, there are also some countries that, depending on the specificity of the country, and we realized at the steering committee the other day that language can be a barrier for peer-to-peer. The culture could be another barrier, so we identify another country, and like Ethiopia, where we capacitate a numbers of utilities, and now these utilities are becoming mentors, and they are mentoring other utility in the country. So with this short introduction, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Kanfa, for that good presentation. I'm hoping the various utilities that are represented in this place are excited about the program and you'd want to be a part of the program. Our next presentation will basically look at one of the utilities that started off as a mentee. They became a mentor, and now they are a regional implementing partner. We'll look at the learning pathways they've gone through and how they are spreading the WOOP movement in Africa. To make that presentation, let me introduce Zenbab Pakariyaba. I hope that's a good way of pronouncing it. Now, Zainab is, she's a external manager services at the National Water and Sewerage Corporation in Uganda. She's currently leading a consultancy and international capacity development partnership portfolio. She specializes in the utility advisory services, water utility operations and management, and has over 17 years of experience in the water and sanitation sector. She manages the network of local and international partners through which the outputs of external services are delivered. She says she enjoys teamwork with diverse backgrounds. She enjoys meeting people. So for her, meeting new people, I'm sure she's very excited about that. She plays and enjoys watching sports and travels the world. Her passion is to serve, contribute, and make a difference in the society. Zainab holds a master's degree in water and utility management from Agro-Paris Tech International Institute in France, and a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. So let's put our hands together as we welcome the next presenter. Zainab.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, I was just trying to test whether we are still here. I'm excited to be making this presentation this afternoon. I'm disadvantaged by the fact that this is the last day of the Congress and everyone is on diminishing returns. But I'm sure this afternoon will be a worthwhile venture for all of you, because you'll be hearing from the context, from the experience of implementing water operator partnerships in Africa. As National Water and Sewerage Corporation, we have been part of the WARP movement in Africa. We have been members of the African Water and Sanitation Association for the last 20 years or so. And today I will share briefly on this journey, what we have implemented, and what are some of the lessons and perspectives. I'll start by introducing National Water. National Water and Sewerage Corporation is a public utility in Uganda. Our mandate is to provide water and sewerage services in all urban areas, cities, and towns entrusted to it on a commercially and financially viable basis. Our geographical coverage is all over the country, as you can see in the map that I've shared there. And we have tried to innovate and be creative in order to deliver services to every corner of the country. We provide water and sewerage services in the towns, while water and sanitation services in the other parts of the country, in the rural areas, is under the jurisdiction of our line ministry. I'm happy that we have my colleagues from the line ministry, our bosses here, who are present, including the Assistant Commissioner. National Water, in order to deliver on its mandate, came up with an ambitious Water for All program. And our aim is to move from the situation that you see in that little girl in that picture on the left to the situation where everyone can access water. And in doing that, we need to build capacities. one of the strategies, the key strategies of national water in order to deliver on that ambitious strategy is capacity development. And capacity development in national water has evolved. And I'm presenting this for you to understand the context under which we have been participating under the African Water and Sanitation Association programs. We started off with training activities, theoretical and classroom training in a small training center in our premises, plus some one-on-one coaching and hands-holding. And over time, we felt that we needed to improve on this, and we graduated into providing skills development for our staff to deliver more effectively on our mandate, but also to serve our customers better. We also concentrated on technical assistance and knowledge transfer, as well as benchmarking and networking. And the importance of this evolution was to tap into the opportunities out there, but also to share our experience, having gone through a rigorous reform process and improved our performance over the years. We then graduated into practical skills through our vocational skills development facility, looking at blended learning, where we would match the theoretical training with practical and hands-on training. And through that, in order to reach all corners, all the staff that we have in the country, we regionalized our training. So we deliver training. We have regional training centers in national water for the different regions in the country, in the north, east, south, and central. And we also immersed ourselves into the WOPs implementation and peer-to-peer learning. And we were one of the initial actors in the WOP platform in Africa, participating as mentees, and we also gravitated into mentors. We have an external services department, which is the department that I manage back in national water, which was created in order to enhance our south-to-south as well as north-south cooperation, but also to rejuvenate ourselves as national water towards increased learning, enhancing learning, and continue on our path for continuous improvement. We also looked at creating synergies within utility providers that are beneficial to both us and the partners that we work with. And that was the basis in which we immersed ourselves into this WOP story and arrangement. But behind that, as we started implementing the WOPs as mentors, and we grew in stature and became as mentees and then became mentors, we have implemented WOPs for the last more than 15 years. And our motivation for the WOPs was the wide operational experience and clear understanding of utility issues that was premised on the journey that we had traveled through in improving our operational performance from a poor performing utility to one of the outstanding utilities in Africa. We have developed a strong capacity building resource base with the good expertise and competent resource persons across all operational aspects, technical, financial, commercial, governance. And we have supported a number of utilities over the last 15 years, since we started WOP implementation. That map there shows some of the WOPs that we have implemented. In West Africa, we have implemented WOPs in Ghana, Nigeria, In East Africa, we have worked a lot in East Africa, in almost all the East African countries, and some in Southern Africa. With this partnership and participation in AFWA activities, in May 2021, the partnership and participation as National Water in AFWASA activities evolved into a regional implementing partner role. When we signed the MOU with the AFWASA to support the implementation of the East African regional programs. And the objectives are those three. One was to support the programs in East Africa, facilitate and mentor peer-to-peer partnerships between NWSC as well as water and sanitation operators in the East African region, delivery of classroom and virtual training, including those under the African Water and Sanitation Academy. This was geared towards entrenching ourselves as mentors, but also as capacity builders within the East African region. This was on the backdrop of the EU ACP project that we had implemented in partnership with IHE, where we received training on how to effectively deliver capacity building programs. That experience through that project helped us to further entrench our delivery of the programs, our performance as experts, and also planning for these programs. Some of the activities under this role, they are categorized in three areas. One, we are supporting the citywide inclusive sanitation program, which in East Africa is being implemented, is being launched. It was launched in 2021 in Ethiopia and Kenya, and we are starting with 3 utilities in Ethiopia and 4 utilities in Kenya, including Sodo, Wolaita, I think we have Ambo, and then in Kenya we have Nairobi City, Kisumu, Nakuru. And part of that program we are supporting, we participated in the program launch. We are going to support the mass training for the key stakeholders that will lead the implementation of this program. We will facilitate baseline assessments for sanitation situation in these utilities, and we will also facilitate the action plan development and also evaluation. We are also providing support to the African Capacity Building Program, which is looking at building capacity in non-revenue water reduction and improvement. And we are facilitating the peer-to-peer water operator partnership for South Sudan in non-revenue water management and improvement. We have supported Sodo, Wolaita, under the same arrangement, and also Blantyre, Malawi, Blantyre, Malawi. We are also supporting the implementation of laboratory operator partnerships geared towards improving water quality management for Nairobi City Water and Sewage Company in Kenya. And through this, we have carried out the diagnostic visits, had discussions to assess areas of improvement, and we are supporting the action plan implementation. We also have AWASA. We are also hosting the AWASA, as Dr. Ken Fak highlighted earlier. We will support delivery of the trainings under AWASA and capacity building in the region. These are some of the photos. I'll quickly skip them. Some of the lessons learned, I think I have very limited time to finish, One of the key lessons is that management commitment is a key factor in the successful implementation of the WOPs. Where we have management not involved in the conceptualization of the WOP, we have found challenges keeping the momentum in the utility because of the competing engagements and competing interests from management. So this is a key aspect of successful WOPs, where we need to have the management involved in the conceptualization and also initial arrangements for the WOP. The second one is limited financing capacity and access to external financing opportunities. We all know that implementation of some of these activities require financing. And yet, for most of the partnering utilities, they are struggling financially. And they might not have a good idea on where and how to access this financing. We have found that through the implementation of the WOP, you find that some of the key actions that you have discussed are not implemented because of lack of financing. And it is clear and, that the utilities are struggling and it needs to be addressed. The third one is limited access to knowledge and partnering opportunities. There's a lot of information in existing networks like AFWA, IWA, and I'm sure even in the global water operator community, there's a lot of information, but most of these utilities are not members of these associations. So they are not able to tap into that knowledge base. And even when they are members, they are not as committed, are not very active in these networks to be able to tap into that knowledge. Then the last one are some of the key perspectives for successful WOPs that allude to some of the lessons that I highlighted earlier. We need to develop mechanisms for assessment such that we are able to provide a solid foundation for these utilities to interrogate and assess their operational situation, but also understand what are the opportunities and what are the partnering opportunities out there, such that they are able to have perfect matches and then they're able to have a successful WOP. This can help potential mentor and mentee utilities to identify these opportunities and then have successful partnerships. Information sharing, I cannot emphasize on that. We need to provide guidelines on low-cost financing options and which institutions and opportunities that are out there. This information could help the mentor and mentee utilities to get the much-needed financing for implementing some of the key actions that might be identified through the WOP. This can be done through mobilizing seed financing to support implementation of these interventions. The last one I'll highlight is appropriate performance indicators. And I'm sure that we always think about these global indicators. But for a successful WOP, even a small indicator like the ability at the end of the WOP to interrogate and diagnose the problem in the utility and come up with solutions could be a good indicator of a successful partnership. So we need to identify some of the indicators. Some could be process indicators or management issues that could be assessed to track the progress of improvement within the utility where partnerships have been implemented. And then lastly is integration of the WOP interventions in the utility planning and intervention cycle. This was something that facilitated or catalyzed a successful WOP that we implemented in Zambia, in Ghana, where we supported the setup and structuring of the low-income customer support unit. The utility took it up, integrated it within its planning cycle, and they were able to run with the interventions that we came up. And even up to now, It was one of the water operator partnership that we identified to continue with under the EU WOP arrangement. And you find that that was critical to the entrenchment of the principles that had been discussed during the WOP implementation, but also it was critical to accessing the much needed financing in terms of budget and staffing to support the implementation of the activities. That is all that I had to share. Thank you very much.
Before you go far, I would invite you to the panel, Kemfat, as well. So thank you again for that presentation and the journey you went through to be able to be ready to impact Africa in terms of mentoring. So let me also invite Faustina Boachi from Ghana Water Corporation to join the panel. Let me also invite Mukta Ahmed from the Ethiopian Water Utility, who is the managing director there. And also Simen from the European, from VEI. Yeah, please. He almost collapsed. Right. So if you have questions, please just keep them, because I think we have enough time to just ask questions. But maybe let me start by asking Faustina. Faustina, you've been a mentor as well, and now you're also becoming, you've been a mentee, you're now becoming a mentor. Maybe just share with us your experience as well, and some of the challenges of being a mentee and how you overcame those.
Thank you very much. It's always a delight and an honor to share our journey as a mentee and now a proud mentor, delivering inclusive water services in JWCL's operations. Ghana Water, where I work, is a utility that is committed to meeting the increasing demand for better service delivery by efficiently producing and distributing water services as well as customer management in urban areas of Ghana. Ours is one of the few utilities in the Africa region that has focused and is currently putting a lot of resources to ensure inclusive water services. And I would say that WOPs were instrumental in putting the emphasis to extending proper water services in Ghana. We undertook steady visits to some utilities in Africa, where we learned useful lessons and also gained ideas as to how we should go about establishing a proper unit within our utility. We actually visited National Water in Uganda. We visited Nairobi City Water as well as Lusaka Water and Sewage Corporation about 10 years ago to learn from their Propo units. Upon return, a business case was made to our own management, which culminated in the formation of our Lixu unit, which has now evolved into a department. I would say that learning from our peers in Africa was an eye-opener, which helped to fuel our appreciation of partnerships. But it is also important to add that the buy-in of management, or management's buy-in for the establishment of dedicated department, which will advocate for unserved communities and households to also enjoy improved services, is critical. So for utilities from Africa and Asia, it is important for whoever is leading the equity agenda to make sure that you are able to make a good case for management to pick up and implement. In Ghana, the support of our board as well as our MD was instrumental in the rollout of the equity agenda. I have also seen at first hand how goodwill and funding from development partners, regulators, consumers themselves have helped to elevate inclusive water services and has helped to put us where we find ourselves as a department in our own right. They has supported us along the way to professionalize the department, and we have enjoyed a lot of hand-holding along the past years. We have grown and are now helping Guma Valley Water Services for Guma Valley Water to build their capacity to deliver inclusive services to their poor communities. The root of our partnership with Guma Valley dates back to 2018, when we began collaborating with them to support Guma Valley to improve their operational activities. So we have been with Guma Valley for 5 years now, supporting them to improve operational activities, and now we are focusing mainly on proper water services. So I will say that as a mentee, we have learned well, and we are now sharing our experiences with Guma Valley. And we hope to expand our reach to other utilities in Africa and Asia to learn and to share, so that together we can have a region, an African region, where water is sustainably provided for everyone, whether rich or poor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, did you focus on certain areas as a mentee when you were going through that process?
Yes, we started focusing on service delivery to the poor, because Ghana Water was doing well when it comes to operational efficiency, financial management, and others. But we had a key challenge in proper water service delivery, and that is why we went to National Water, Nairobi Water, and Lusaka Water to learn from their proper experience, because they had already established their proper unit and they were doing well in that aspect. So we went to learn from them, and we have established our own unit and are sharing our lessons with Guma Valley Water. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me go to Mukta. Mukta, I'm told the Ethiopia Water Utility Federation is also establishing a national WAP. What could have motivated this?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We are motivated in case of web implementing in Ethiopia by AFWA and currently JOPA and UNICEF. First, the Africa Water Association is an entry point by implementing web in Ethiopia through Ethiopian Urban Water Federation. So I am excited this program because due to this, as Dr. Simon mentioned his presentation, Sodo Town is become a mentee to a mentor. This is the result of AFWA in Ethiopia. This is, we have changed, we have seen a real change as grassroots. The approach is very nice. First, assess the diagnostic assessment on the utility by participating the expertise, the management. Next, prepare the report, and then prepare the action plan. Lastly, go to the training and implementing the approach. So the approach is very nice, and it comes a change. So in Ethiopia, we are lucky to get this approach. Even there are two elements implemented in SODO, in water quality and in RW. One mentor is Uganda National Water. The other mentor is Uganda utility. The South Africa utility. So we are benefited from this utility. One, the approach is, in Ethiopia there is a cultural thought. A big brother is support a small brother. The strong or the best utility is support the weak utility. This changes a big change in our country. In RW water quality, just the program almost ongoing, and it becomes a change. Next, the citywide inclusive sanitation is, we are celebrated the kickoff launch in Dese, Walaita, Dese, and Ambo towns. In the coming soon, the mass training is, we planned with Madam Zainab, becoming June 1st. So the approach is very nice, and we are excited to implement this program. And the UNICEF and JOPA also followed three utilities in Ethiopia, Bidire, De Yogana, and Bule. I think what I said in the approach, we are exercise this approach to scale up other utilities. Not only limited in these utilities, we are looking toward this to scale up this approach for other utilities. The remaining thing is what I suggest. The approach is it has peer-to-peer learning, class learning, and knowledge sharing. But if the approach is including coaching, training without coaching, it is useless. So in the approach, we will add the coaching process, and the follow-up, evaluation, and monitoring system are including in this approach. I think the approach and the science is fully effective, and the utilities are become a radical change in short period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe let me address the next question to Dr. Kenfa. Just in case someone here running a utility from Africa, they are wondering how can they be part of this WOOP Africa. Maybe you could address that issue.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Before it was, we were just a unique platform. And you realize now we have splitted ourselves into many parts, which all rely on the coordination, the Africa, the continental coordination. So depending on where the utility is based, it can be based in the east. There is an eastern platform. It can be based in Ethiopia, and it can link to the federation. And to any of this, I'm sure as the Continental Coordination Unit, I'm sure the information will get to me. But it can also, depending on where we are, and given that we have a website, afwaza.org, you can also get to Afwaza directly through the contact you will get on the website, and then you will be responded. There is a knowledge management unit which operate, let's say 7 times 7, and if otherwise we took the opportunities of this event, this event and other like this one to share the contact, and that is how we can get to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Simon, what support are you giving to the water partnership in Africa, or in what areas should people expect support from VE?
Yes. Let me put it like this. When we started this morning with our first session before the coffee break, it was made very clear by the people in the audience at that moment that the work to be done to make utilities in Africa perform better is for 90% the job of the utilities themselves. And whatever we consider to be supportive to their managerial, their operational, or their governance role is just added value, but that may be just 10%. So 90% of all the problems in managing utilities, in operating the utilities, and in getting things done in service delivery to the people is to be done by your employees. So if I come to VEI, we do a lot to support utilities in Africa, but it is just the 10% of the complete picture. 90% is still in your hands. That means that to me, a WOP, a Water Operator Partnership, is a very useful instrument. It's not a very strong model, but it can be powerful if you use it properly. And I feel that we have to give more credits and more ownership to the utilities themselves in Africa to take the lead. As it was said this morning, you have to come up with your long-term investment planning, not haphazard, because there is some kind of crazy donor passing by and, oh, let's just make a plan so that we can try to harvest some money. No, make a plan. Make your plan. And concise and project the demand for the future, what you need. And if you have a convincing story to tell, Harold Schussel was sitting here yesterday on behalf of the European Investment Bank. He said, money is available, that's not a problem, but you don't have good plans. Now that's to be taken on board. Eh? Now for VEI, coming back to your question, sorry, I sometimes take too long, but now I have the floor. VEI is able and willing to assist you in getting your work processes upright by capacitating at peer-to-peer level the people in your utility. But at the end of the day, we have no power. As I told this morning also, the change, the improvement in your utility has to come from inside. You are the agents of change, not we. We bring suggestions, we bring ideas, but you have to make it happen, and not we. That's the weakness of a WOP, and also its strength. Because once you decide to embark on the suggestions for improvement, it might be having lasting impact. And that's where we are looking for. Now, what we do, we do assist managerial support to the management teams. I often see in the utilities that there are management teams that are not at all a team. And if you are not a team as a management team, you do not perform, you do not empower your people in the utility. We do try to incorporate all our efforts to streamline your work processes, because you cannot ask for external support if you have not your internal financing up and organized. So I think on that side, the technical support and the managerial support can be provided. We can build your team stronger. We can reflect on your own capacities and your competencies and your lack of competencies. Nobody is complete, eh? So everybody has his or her weakness, and we can try to address that and find to remediate that one, to make you a stronger management team, to do the things you have to do. That's in fact what the WOP is doing.
Thank you. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add something to what Siemens has said. The issue of utilities taking charge and looking at what they need and taking advantage of the WOP opportunities is very critical. I would like to share the case of National Water. We've worked with VEI for quite some time, but it all started with the EU ACP project, where we partnered with VEI to support the Northern Umbrella of Uganda in improving their operational asset management. We provided the training, we provided the staff to support the training in asset management. But at the end of that project, we sat down with VEI and we were talking about how to continue with the partnership. And at that time, the opportunity for the Waterworks project came, and we sat down with Siemens and some of our other colleagues, and we came up with a proposal. And we've been implementing the Waterworks project since 2018. But the most important thing that I would like to share within the Waterworks project, because the design of the Waterworks project, it has a component of attracting financing. And I highlighted in my presentation that financing for WOP interventions is critical for a utility to be able to realize the gains or the outputs that it is targeting. Now, in the Waterworks Phase 2, what has happened was that we have sat down and looked at what is the need that we have as National Water. We have looked at our operational landscape, looked at some of the challenges that we have in terms of capacities, in terms of equipment, in terms of operational processes, and we have designed the Phase 2 project to meet those needs. And in our discussion, we have constituted teams to interrogate the focus areas and work packages further and look at what other areas that need to be tackled through the WOP. And the budget has been flexibly been provided to suit some of the additional action areas that will come up. So that has been very, very critical in having that successful relationship. And on VEI's part, they have tried to identify, to point us to opportunities out there. Climate Change Fund, all the funds that are out there that we could tap into and be able to access the additional resources to invest in some of the activities that we want to implement. So it's been very critical.
Yeah.
Wanted to add that.
Simeon, you want to come in? Take note, financing is not a problem. What's the problem is good proposals.
Yeah, I want to add again for the place of institution like V in the WAP process in the Africa continent. In fact, it's not a matter of shame that you should close yourself into a room, and think you will get all the solutions of your problem within. And as far as the improvement is concerned, and improvement in the water service management, we all know that there is a huge problem of Africa is lag behind on water and sanitation, and we should not, as African, lock ourselves and say we will get the solution only ourselves. We should look at the world, go and benchmark, look who is able to come and support, and together we will find the mean. And the WAP is another, one of these means that takes us here this week. WAP is one of the means for Africa utility to partner with European organization with American, Asian, that we think they can support. We can buy in from their experience to improve our service delivery, and we thank VE as one of these organizations which is supporting implementation of WAP in the continent. Thank you.
Thank you
You
so
would
much,
like to
but I
comment?
have
Yeah.
one comment on that.
Yeah.
And I am here in the Africa arena. I'm on my own, so you can just come up and do not agree with me. It was 10 years ago that I sat with Malin Blomberg from the African Development Bank, your bank. We were sitting in Copenhagen talking about financing, sustainable financing of water utilities. The same discussion as we have today. And we called upon all the people over there, because we have massive numbers of congresses. Some people come from Abidjan to The Hague, to Bonn, to Rwanda this year, the end of this year. They keep on flying around. That's also a question mark. But we sat there in Copenhagen, in Stockholm at that moment, and we said, let's agree all together. Now we are here. That was 10 years ago, so that means about 2020. Let's try to focus that by 2030, all African utilities are not complementing their investment program for the extension of services for the new population to come, but at least are able to not only recover their operational costs, but also the rehabilitation and the replacement costs of the existing infrastructure. And I must say that I am now 65. This will be more or less my last conference, I think. For some, that may be nice. But nothing has changed so much. And I think there is time to accelerate. UN Water called upon acceleration factors. We are to accelerate. We cannot sit discussing and repeating the problems that we have. We keep on singing the same song, but this is not a European song contest. We have to make progress for the people that we are serving, and we are not making sufficient progress, I think. That's why I'm happy to be here, and I call upon the African players to be the accelerator factor. I mean, I know that there are international WOPs with VEI and with Hamburg Wasser and with Water Aid and whatever. That's nice, but international WOPs means that experts have to travel for a full day or night in the plane to come to Lilongwe, to come to Zomba, to come to whatever place. Gosh, you have potential in Africa. You have leading water utilities in Africa. Replicate your potential to act as a mentor and replicate your partnership with your peers. You can do that by physically traveling around between Rwanda, Uganda, between Kenya and Ethiopia, whatever. Create that unifying factor and be the stronghold sector that Africa needs. And do not bind up with your boundaries and with your constraints and with your restrictions. You have more power, and I think the African Water and Sanitation Association, I would call upon them to say, look, all the utilities in Africa have to contribute to us, and let us, with our African Academy, of which we are talking about for many years now, let us take a lead in capacitating our peers. I've made a quick assessment once. There are about approximately 250,000 people working in the water sector in Africa. Don't count me on the numbers, but it is more or less the idea. If you take a look that they serve a 20 years lifetime in their utility, then you have each year to replace the 250 divided, about 10,000 people per year. You have to replace them by new recruits, new capacitated people. They have to be trained, they have to be mindseted. That's a huge challenge. That's a huge challenge we cannot offer from within Europe or from within the States or whatever. You have to do that. You have to empower your people, and you have to accelerate and replicate and multiply. Otherwise, we never get out of this vicious circle of starting to complain, we need more money, we need more support, and come on, the time is up, let's go. Let's go. 2030 is approaching, we have still 7 years to go. We can make a change if we want. And as Faustina is saying, she made a travel, a journey from mentee to from mentor to mentee. National Water has more than 20 years of experience. I can call 10 utilities that have the potential tomorrow to start with peer interaction. At GIVOPA level, we started with a community of practice for practitioners to do training themselves and exchanging and sharing best practices online. After the COVID pandemic, we learned that we can use this e-learning instrument for our own sector. So nobody should leave the room here without not being registered as a member and take active part. Because there is now the moment to accelerate. The topic of water and sanitation is interesting, but it is not for eternal on the agenda of your donors. The new items are already coming up. Carbon footprint, climate change, and that is more than only diverting money to water, that's also diverting money to other items, urban planning, energy. So we have to make use of our momentum now and not think that our agenda is the global agenda. We can continue talking about the fact that water is life, but there are more factors contributing to life. And we lose our momentum if we do keep repeating our stories.
Right. Hopefully, when you attend the next conference, we'll be talking about something different. Now, just before I open up to the floor, Zainab, in your experience as the mentor, were there issues you struggled with the mentees that you'd want to highlight so that the partnership is more smooth? Any?
Thank you very much. There were quite many, I think, that we've struggled with as a mentee, as a mentor, but also I think as a mentee. I highlighted one with regard to management commitment. I think in the initial WOPs that we implemented, we had gaps in the courtship. during the courtship process, the partnering of mentor-mentee sometimes is not handled as in a mutual way, where the mentor and mentee sit on the table and are able to jointly identify what are the areas, what can I do for you, and what do I need. That has been a challenge, and for the WOPs, I would call them supply-driven WOPs, as opposed to demand-driven WOPs. And as we go forward, we need to have promote more of the demand-driven WOPs, where the partners themselves are able to identify who out there can help. But that is on the basis of a clear understanding of what you need. Where we've had such WOPs, we've had a problem of keeping the momentum. You come up with a PIP and you struggle to get the mentee just to implement actions that are helping the utility improve performance. So in there is a problem which we need to address as we are going forward, such that we are able to have more drive within the utilities and they are able to take charge. The second thing that I would like to highlight is the mechanism of evaluating progress of the PIP. We've had a tendency to come up with the global indicators, non-revenue water percentage, collection efficiency, and yet sometimes they don't speak to the effort, the level of effort, or the maturity of the utility. In a partnership, a WOP partnership that has been conceived right, it would be more beneficial for the mentee to come up with the areas. They might not be the global indicators per se, but they could be process indicators. How frequent are we in meeting each other to assess, to track, to interrogate what are the outputs? How often do we look at the numbers in terms of financial, collection, technical? And what are some of those management processes that are supporting the drive for continuous improvement? A case in point is, for example, you might have an overall indicator of collection efficiency, the money you have collected. However, the processes that lead up to that money, if tracked and if assessed regularly and improved, they could ultimately help the utility achieve the collection level that they want. How do they know the bills that they have issued out? Do they reach all the customers? What are some of the inefficiencies in that process? And as you come up with a way of assessing progress in that process, that could help the utilities be able to realize some successes and have the motivation to continue with the implementation of the WOP. One last thing, which Siemens doesn't want to hear, the financing, the budgeting, the utilities themselves, rethinking their budgeting and apportioning budgeting to those actions or interventions that they have highlighted as necessary to help them improve their performance has been lacking. Because utilities usually have their own budgeting process and sometimes it doesn't match the PIP. And they are not able to allocate resources to the interventions that have been identified under the PIP. And they end up not implementing these actions. And at the end of the WOP, you are not achieving the outputs that you would have wanted. Those are some of them.
Right, thank you. Any questions from the audience? I can see 1, 2, only 2. Okay. Let's start with the lady there. You introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Mary Mariga from Kenya. We are under Kisumu Water. They are our mentors, and we are the mentee. Our lead MD is here. Now, I want to appreciate so much this presentation because it gives us hope. There's a lot of hope. Because I was wondering, if a particular company considers itself a pro-poor, how does it come up with a pro-poor unit? You know, in terms of our revenues are not enough for us to stretch out and say we're creating a special unit called pro-poor. Some of us have stuck at that level for so long. And the revenues are low because of maybe our geographical location. We don't have industries. We don't have as much money. But I really would want to get an assurance that when we write out and ask for this financial support, we shall come to Uganda because we are neighbors. We'll come knocking on your door. I hope you will open and direct us on how to go about it so that we can move. But Kisumu has really tried. They've really tried a lot. And I really want to appreciate our MD who is here with us this evening. So thank you so much for what you've taught us. And there is a lot of hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a comment. Can I get, yes?
Yeah, thank you. I'm David Boys with Public Services International. The question I'd like to ask, for whether it's the panel or others in the room, to what extent are the lending practices of the main development banks in Africa, there's 2 or 3, adapted to the specific needs of the water utilities? Because we see that sometimes they've got their whole list of things they need to check and their amounts that they want to give, and they're not necessarily adapted to what we need in the water sector. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe the last question?
Let me speak from a young person's perspective. It's true that the ball is on our game is on our court as Africans, and to the largest extent, we are the role players in this. Now, to the 4 representatives in the panel from Africa, I want to appreciate that there's this thing of mentoring and mentees. I only hope that it's not only between the WOPs, which may not necessarily be young people, but also it is an intergenerational thing. And one question that I would pose to you, and probably you all can respond, or whoever, are there any kind of innovative or creative ideas or even actions that are already ongoing that we would say this is conceived from Africa, that you guys can see from your spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes to respond to those questions, and the youth want space as well. So anyone can take up the 2 questions.
Yeah. For what the bank in Africa are concerned, we as the AFWAZA, we are working and we are getting support from the Africa Development Bank. They are not represented here. I don't know why. Anne, you from GWOPA, you didn't invite the Africa Development Bank.
It's your session, Simeon.
Yeah, but whatever, I didn't.
You could invite whoever.
Yeah, in fact, we are working together, and they have been following us on some WOP, because out of the WOP, we develop a performance improvement plan for the utility. And I hear this morning through the OFIT expert that the WOP that they supported, this WOP were to mature projects that they could fund later on. And this is what, together with the Africa Development Bank, we are working toward. And for what the youth are concerned, if I get you very well, there is a specific chapter of young water professional at AFWA, so that when it comes to conduct activities, whether there are events like this, we make sure the young water professionals are involved, and that's how the delegation within the WOP activities are also constituted. Thank you.
Anyone to, yeah, please.
Well, two things. I would challenge all of us to have the next Congress after 2 years to only be taken part by people under 35. So everybody who should be in the panel should be less than 35, but because I am convinced that there is more energy and more dynamics and less words in the younger generation than ours. And secondly, I challenge you as well. I mean, I now have the opportunity to take the lead and make sure that the Congress is not here, but in the region where the action is.
Simeon, Simeon, you've disqualified me for the next Congress. Okay, there's the issue of how alive are the development banks to the challenges we're facing as Africa. Yep.
Okay, in Ghana, the World Bank is very much alive in the WASH sector. Over the past 7 years, the World Bank has been working closely with the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, as well as Ghana Water, to deliver water services to over 500,000 people. Under the original projects, which we call the Greater Accra Metropolitan Area Sanitation and Water Project, the World Bank gave a grant funding of $150 million. And with this fund, several households were given access to toilets in their homes. Of course, the families or the households also paid parts of the cost of toilets. More than 10,000 households were also given access to water services in their homes. Apart from this, more than 250 kilometers of pipelines were laid, specifically in unserved areas. Because the project was a huge success, the bank has approved additional funding, which has been and the project has been replicated in the second largest city in Ghana, which is Greater Kumasi. So in Ghana, the World Bank is doing a lot, and it is causing a lot of change within the sector. There's change management going on within JWCL through field level leadership, building the capacity of leadership and staff to efficiently provide services. So a lot is going on. And I believe that in the next 2 years, when we meet again in Africa for the GWOPA Congress, we will have a lot to share to show that progress is being made in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'll give the panel just 30 seconds to conclude each. However, there's still an issue of what we are doing. We're talking about WOP here. Is it African grown? I think we haven't responded to that. So possibly as we conclude in those 30 seconds, we could also address that. Let me start with Mukta.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the capacity building, the challenge of the utilities are mainly the capacity building. But there are many training taken by different stakeholders, but the outcome is lag. We are assessing and identifying why is the problem. There are many training and many participants are taken by different days and by different subjects, but the outcome is not reasonable. The main problem is, one is there is not put the right person to the right place, and the commitment of management. The main problem also, the training not supported by continuous monitoring and coaching. If there is a continuous monitoring and coaching, the training also sustainable, unless it is lag. So we are focused on continuous supporting and monitoring, as well as supporting beside to the training. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Faustina.
Well, the point has already been made. No one utility can do it alone. So there's need to learn and share. So I would say that we need to elevate our utilities by learning from the strengths of other utilities. And let us also learn to do good by extending services to the unserved areas. As we build our capacity, it is important for communities to also know that utilities are doing well. So let us learn to extend services to our low-income, unserved, and vulnerable communities in our various countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Simeon?
Yeah, as AFWAZA, I will just take this opportunity to thank everyone having attending this session. You understood that how was the path, how has been the pathway of AFWA within this AFWA, from AFWA to AFWAZA, within this movement. And when I look at your mind, you seems to be convinced that it's really an appropriate way of capacity building water stakeholders in the continent. And I will invite you to join if you are not, and also to join AFWAZA as a member. Our website is just is open, and from there you can subscribe as membership, our membership. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start by addressing the question on how we are integrating the young in this WARP story or the water sector. I think in the digitalization strategy, we've had a lot of input from the young. At least back at National Water and Sewerage Corporation, our strategy for digitalization, our processes and coming up with innovations has been championed by mainly the young water professionals, and they've done quite a lot on that. And there's a continuous process within the utility to try and look out for those innovations, get them supported, and get them realized. But also within the continent itself, I'm not very well versed in the sanitation field. All my experience is in the water field. But I attended in the last Congress. There were a lot of innovations in the sanitation arena in terms of products, especially coming up with solutions, low-cost solutions to address the sanitation problem. So there were quite a number of innovations from Africa. And if the young can latch onto this, then they'll be able to find their relevance and take them forward. My last comment would be on, I heard it from somewhere, someone I was discussing with, and she said, you need to stay stupid. Stay stupid such that you can continuously learn. To facilitate continuous learning, if you have an aura of I know it, then you'll not be able to learn. So for mentors and mentees in the room or everyone participating in this WARP story, there's always something to learn for the mentors and even the mentors. So cross-learning is always a given in this whole story. If you're open to it, then you learn. The other thing is to keep the eye on the ball, to stay focused and be clear on what you want to achieve and follow through with it and adjust it as and when you see that you're not on track and you want to bring it back on track, and then you'll be able to achieve that. Those will be my last words. Thank you.
If the youth has the future, then the future is to Africa. That's one. So make use of your resource mobilization over there. And secondly, every week in the world there is somewhere a marathon. And you Africans are always in the winning mood. So you're very good in running a marathon. Why not start from now on to focus on sprinting towards 2030? I think you can do.
Right, thank you so much. Yeah, there's that question that still lingers. Is this an African grown? Someone says it doesn't matter whether the cat is white or black as long as it catches the mice. So I think as long as it's working for us and we can make progress, let's incorporate this. And I think from the experiences shown and shared, it's clear that WARP has a role in improving service provision for water supply in Africa. Small indicators could be good indicators for partnership. Financing is available. What is lacking is proposals, but someone says, please open the door, we want to access finances. There are opportunities that exist to learn, and we can look forward to participating and also making the issue of WARP works for the improvement of water supply. And our passion should be that someone who didn't have water is receiving water, then would have achieved the objective of this process. So please, let's put our hands together as we appreciate the panelists this afternoon for the work well done. And thank you so much for being patient with us and being around. God bless you.